I had a day off, so I invited my best friend, Dave, for a drink at the Plow. I found a quiet corner where we could sit. He was probably only drinking non-alcoholic beverages because he had a night shift starting at 6. We both worked in shifts at the same paper manufacturing company. We were waiting for my wife, Jenny, to join us. I was feeling irritated but kept my emotions in check. Dave didn't seem to notice my short responses while we were talking. Jenny and I had been friends since elementary school. We mainly spent time together and grew up side by side. We both liked Dave. He was a good friend, but sometimes he wasn't very reliable. Even in those early days, we knew he was a bit of a gambler. His word wasn't always solid, it was more like a lump of warm jelly. But over time, my feelings for Jenny grew, and it seemed that her feelings for me were growing too. Friendship turned into love, and we got married when we were both 23. We often got together on weekends, Jenny, me, Craig, and Dave with his latest girlfriend. Dave was always there to help. He might be a little late, sometimes even very late, but he always got things done. From early on, it was obvious that Jenny loved me just as much as I loved her, and everyone expected that we would get married. All our parents could see what was happening, and they were happy about it. Dave was my best man at our wedding, and he was also the scoundrel because of whom I ended up on a train to Scotland for my bachelor party with no money. Fortunately, I had a hunch something like that might happen, so I hid a little cash and my credit card in my sock. At first, it was a bit uncomfortable using the card, but after a few drinks, I stopped feeling the pain. He was surprised when I showed up for work the next day. He had already thought up an excuse for me. Jenny had always been a bit of a flirt from an early age. I'm sure at first, she didn't realize what she was doing, but once hormones kicked in, she became fully aware. However, she kept it under control, just a playful glance and a smile. She never crossed the line. "Why do you flirt with other men?" I asked directly one day. "It's fun," she replied. "It's just harmless flirting, nothing serious." She even did it with Dave sometimes. I had grown used to her ways, and it would have been strange if she didn't flirt a little. One day, after we had been married for a few years, I asked her on the way home from the pub, "Why don't you flirt with me?" "It's not fun flirting with your husband in public." "I do that for you in the bedroom," she said with a smile. And she did. Our intimacy was great. Our company was expanding, and both Dave and I had the chance to get promoted to become shift supervisors. There was a training course organized for this. Dave went first for his training, and a few weeks later, it was my turn. This meant we had to be away for the weekends. Dave told me about his adventures. He was single and a good-looking guy. I, on the other hand, was married and behaved myself. Well, maybe I drank a bit too much on Saturday night and wasn't feeling too fresh on Sunday morning. The salary increase from my promotion meant that soon Jenny and I would have enough saved up to make a down payment on a house, and once we got settled, we planned to start a family. We talked about it often and eagerly anticipated the day we would symbolically toss her birth control pills down the toilet. After all, that's what people do. I noticed a change in Jenny's behavior about 3 months ago, right after I returned from the training course. It took me a while to realize it. At first, it was subtle. The frequency of intimacy increased, which I attributed to the fact that I had been away for over a week. But then, after a few weeks, our intimate life nearly stopped. I also noticed that her usual flirting when we went out slowed down. She still did it, but not as openly as before. It became more subtle. There were other small signs too. The house wasn't as tidy as it usually was. Laundry, which she typically did during the week in her free time, was now done on the weekends. Other tasks that she used to take care of during the week were now being completed over the weekend, cutting into our time together. Something was going on. Now I was looking for other signs. Usually, she would take a shower when she got home from work. Nothing unusual there, except now her showers were twice as long. I also noticed that her paycheck had decreased, so I assumed she wasn't working as many hours as before. When I asked her about it, she simply said that there were fewer shifts available since the supermarket was hiring younger staff. It seemed odd, though, when I stopped by the supermarket and didn't see any younger staff, just the same older employees as before. In fact, there was a large sign in the store advertising job openings. That's when it hit me. She was probably having an affair, most likely with someone from work. I couldn't afford to hire a private detective, and my time was taken up with my new job. I could have taken a day or two off, but that probably wouldn't have been enough, and Dave would have heard about my time off. He would have asked me about it, and I didn't want to admit to him that I suspected Jenny of cheating. I needed more information. So I bought a few small spy Wi-Fi cameras on eBay and installed them in our bedroom and living room. I also tracked her phone using a tracking app. 3 weeks went by and I didn't find anything. I realized I needed help and decided to confide in Dave. I told him that I thought Jenny was having an affair and asked if he could help. He was skeptical, he didn't believe it. He said she loved me so much that she would never cheat on me. But he offered his help anyway. He could follow her in the evenings when he had a day shift, and on the nights he worked, he could rest in the morning and keep an eye on her during the day. He reported everything he found during the shift changes. She worked at a supermarket stocking shelves, and I told him I suspected that's where she might be cheating on me. It would have been hard to catch them if it was happening at the supermarket. Well, after a few weeks, Dave told me he hadn't found anything and he was sure nothing was going on. He had a friend who worked at the supermarket and there were no rumors about Jenny having an affair. There were rumors about other people but not about her. But now I was even more convinced. Judging by the obvious signs, the extra affection, the increased attention to her appearance, it was clear something wasn't right. She didn't change how she dressed, but she started fixing her hair more often and applying more makeup. It was a Saturday night and we went to the Plow. There was a small disco there. Usually Jenny danced with both of us, but mostly with me. But this time she danced almost exclusively with me. She only danced with Dave a few times. And then it hit me. She had stopped flirting with Dave. The affair wasn't with someone at the supermarket, it was with Dave. I had been such a fool, trusting the two people I cared about most in the world after my own parents. It all became clear, and I couldn't believe how blind I had been. I needed more information, and this time I had to gather it myself. Jenny organized her shifts to match mine whenever possible, which often helped, but sometimes work had to come first. Her shifts and schedule changed frequently, so we kept a calendar with dates and times. I went back and double-checked the video footage of her leaving the house, comparing it with the shift times on the calendar. That was it. She left our house around 10, even though her shift didn't start until 2. Then I noticed she had left her phone at home. She had to pass by our house on her way from Dave's place to the supermarket. How could I have been so blind? The following Monday, I worked during the day and Dave had the night shift. Jenny's shift didn't start until 2. After I left for work, I called in sick. Jenny was scheduled to start her day shift earlier. According to the calendar, it should have been at 4 that day, so she could be home at the same time as me. I watched as she left our house about an hour after I had gone, heading to Dave's place, and then left just in time to make it to her shift. No wonder the house wasn't as tidy as usual. She was spending most of the day at Dave's. I took pictures of her coming and going. I had to make sure it couldn't be something innocent. I would look like a complete fool if I accused them without proof. That Monday evening, I went out for a walk. I knew where Dave kept his spare key hidden. I took 2 Wi-Fi cameras with me. He wouldn't have noticed them among the clutter he lived in. I even managed to place one in his bedroom. Though, when I had recently visited him, I noticed his apartment had become a bit tidier. I had assumed he was seeing someone, but he hadn't mentioned anyone to us. I caught them the next day. Jenny showed up at Dave's place, but it wasn't just a friendly kiss, it was a kiss between lovers. I heard her scolding him about the state of the apartment and she started cleaning up. As soon as she finished, he took her by the hand and led her to the bedroom. They didn't come out for 2 hours. That was enough for me. I didn't need to watch what was happening in the bedroom. I couldn't bear to break my own heart any further. I simply saved the recording for later. That was last week. I told her I wasn't feeling well and wasn't in the mood for intimacy. My parents had moved to the South Coast, so I suggested we visit them for the weekend. There would be no intimacy there. It felt wrong to do that in my parents' house, and frankly, I didn't want to be with her after what I had seen. Besides, something Dave said on one of the recordings during a phone call had piqued my interest. We returned on Sunday, and since neither of us liked to cook, I suggested getting Chinese takeout when we got back. I went to pick it up. I made sure to get close enough to Dave's house to connect to his Wi-Fi. My suspicions were confirmed. I asked Dave to meet me at the pub at 5 o'clock before he left for his shift. I ordered drinks, including one for Jenny. When he arrived, he asked what was going on. I told him I wanted to wait until Jenny got there. I'm sure I noticed a flicker of concern on his face. He drank half a pint of light beer, not wanting to be drunk before work. Then I received a message saying Jenny was on her way. I placed my phone on the table and kept the screen on. I was waiting for another message. Jenny arrived. She slid up next to me and gave me a kiss. She was smiling, barely glancing at Dave. Well, darling, what's all this about? What's with the cloak and dagger routine? Oh, it's quite simple. How long have you two been having an affair behind my back? Their expressions were priceless. In the corner of the room, I had my old phone set up, recording everything. Jenny muttered, "We're not like that." "What makes you think so?" "We're not like that." Dave raised his hands. "That would be ridiculously stupid, buddy." "Of course not. We'd never do that to you. You must be out of your mind." Both of their faces were bright red. That's when I pulled out the photos from my pocket, pictures of them walking into his bedroom holding hands. The date and time were clearly marked, and then, 2 hours later, pictures of them coming out, along with one of them kissing, not like friends, but like lovers. Jenny's face went from bright red to pale white. She looked like she had seen a ghost. I pulled an envelope from my pocket. I had printed a separation agreement. I tossed it onto the table. Jenny picked it up and read it while I took a sip of my beer. No, I don't want this. Please, I don't want this. You still haven't answered my question, how long? I'm going to ask you a few more questions. I already know most of the answers, so if I catch a single lie, I'm walking out. I'll sign this paper, go to a lawyer tomorrow, and this separation will turn into a divorce. I could see the gears turning in Jenny's head. If we separated, she might find a way to win me back. She saw this as a way to avoid a divorce. About 3 months, Dave replied. I'm sorry, man, it just happened. I love her. I've always loved her and she loves me too. But she loves you more than she loves me. I'm sorry. We should have been stronger. I'll stop this. I can't let you two break up. It would hurt all of us. They had just confessed and I didn't need to torture myself by watching their encounters on video. It was Jenny's turn to explain. It happened when I went over to his place while you were away at your training. His apartment was a mess. I cleaned up for him and then we sat on the couch, watched a movie, and had some wine. Then he said, look at us like an old married couple. He leaned in and kissed me and well, it just happened. We both felt guilty afterward, but not guilty enough to stop, I said through gritted teeth. I'm sorry, we were wrong. It just became convenient, she replied. I looked at Jenny. He said you love him, didn't he? I love you and I've always liked him. Those feelings grew stronger, but I love you even more. I'm sorry. You didn't answer my question. Yes, she whispered, staring down at her lap. Yes, but not as much as I love you. I'm so sorry. Can we get through this? I'll do anything, please. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. I'm sorry. This shouldn't have happened. I do love him, but I love you more. I'm sorry, darling, but it's possible to love more than one person. Over the years, I've grown attached to him, and in the past few months, that attachment turned into love. It only started 3 months ago while you weren't home. She paused for a moment. How did you find out? It became completely obvious when I realized you had stopped flirting with him. You don't flirt with your own husband. Well, you told me yourself that you don't. So, the increase in intimacy was because of guilt. She looked at me and said, partly yes. I'm sorry, but sometimes I just wanted to be with you. You're better than him. He didn't agree with that. Was she trying to calm me down? Unfortunately, until last week, I couldn't put 2 and 2 together. I looked her straight in the eyes. So, what was supposed to happen when we started a family? Whose family would it really be, mine or his? Her face dropped. Yours, of course, darling. Yours and always yours. How can I be sure of that? I don't trust you. How can I be sure of that? I don't trust you. We're too alike. You could have had his child and passed it off as mine. No, Dave and I talked about it. We would have stopped when you and I decided to start a family. He nodded in agreement. I continued, but I heard Dave say he wanted to start fresh once the baby was born. She looked at me in horror. No, I would have been completely yours. We would have responsibilities. Dave was going to be the godfather. We had already discussed it, you and I. Yes, I heard you tell him on the video, I love you. You said that to me this morning when I left for work. And just now you said you love both of us. So, who's it going to be, him or me? You need to make a choice right here, right now. Not in 5 hours, not in 12, not in 24. Right here, right now. She reached out to me. You, my love, will always be with me forever. I'm sorry that I'll never see Dave again. I choose you. I'm sorry, but I will fix this for you, she kept repeating. I looked at her and said, that's good, but how can I be sure you won't go behind my back again? I don't know, but I'll find a way. We'll move away. Whatever it takes. We can move in with your mom and dad. I'm sorry, I really do love him, but I love you more. I'm sorry, I can't help how I feel. But I want to have children with you. I turned to Dave. So, when I asked you to keep an eye on Jenny because I thought she was having an affair, you had an ulterior motive to tell me nothing was happening because it was with you? He simply nodded. Jenny quickly turned her head, looked at him, and asked, why didn't you tell me he thought I was having an affair? Because you would have ended it and I love you. Great. It was almost as if I had put the words right into his mouth. Well, I had tried to steer him in that direction anyway. I opened another photo of him. This time, he was with Sari Bridges, the wife of our boss, on the back of the couch. I took out my phone and played a clip where Dave said, Sari, I love you. Let's run away together from your old man. And what about that one-night stand with Christine? I laid down another picture, this one showing Dave with a dark-haired girl in his bed, him lying on top of her. I played another clip where he asked her if he could see her again. Jenny just sat there, her lips forming a silent, goldfish shape. Tears were streaming down her cheeks. Goldfish can't cry, can they? I finished my beer, got up from the table, and went to pour myself another. I wasn't going to waste more time with these two cheating fools. Later, I checked what they said to each other on the phone, just in case there was anything interesting. I had planned ahead. I sat down again. Looking at Jenny, I said, "Oh, I don't think we'll be moving. I think we'll stay right here." Dave looked horrified. "I can't move. My parents live here, and they'll need my help." "Oh, I think you'll be moving sooner than you think." I sent Mr. Bridges, you know, our boss, copies of the video I took of you and his wife. You really should have cleaned up the couch before sleeping with her. And I seem to recall you telling her you loved her more than anything in the world. You wanted her to leave him. Well, it turns out you can love more than one person. A message appeared on my phone. I just glanced at it. I think our boss is waiting for you at work. He's probably staying late to be there when you show up. I slid a few more photos toward him, the ones showing him with Mrs. Bridges. Jenny finally realized what was happening. She yelled at him, "You bastard. You're cheating on me." The irony was almost laughable. A cheater calling out another cheater. Dave didn't wait around. He left quickly, not even bothering to say goodbye. Mr. Bridges was a powerful man. Jenny reached out to me. "I'm sorry, honey. I really am. We shouldn't have done this. Please, let's forget about this separation. I'll make it right. I'll do anything. Please." "Stay there," I said, standing up and walking over to the window. I saw exactly what I expected and dialed 911. I told the operator, "You'd better send an ambulance. It looks like someone's being beaten up near the plow on Mill Road. I'd prefer not to give my name. I don't want to get involved. They would have my phone number. I'm sure they could track me if they wanted." The message I had received earlier was from Mr. Bridges. "I'm outside." I returned to Jenny, who was still crying. "Honey, I'll do anything." I couldn't help myself, but it was wrong. Once we started, I couldn't stop. "I'm sorry, we should have been stronger. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'll do anything as long as it doesn't involve someone else. I'll dress up for you. I'll always look good. I'll wear stockings and you can have me any way you want. Anything." Why did she think that offering me that would somehow undo her betrayal? I don't need that from you. There's a perfectly good option right next to it. Besides, we tried that before and you didn't like it. You said it made you feel dirty. A thought crossed my mind. "I suppose you did it with him, didn't you?" She looked at me and said no. "He wanted to, but I said no. But even if we had, I wouldn't have been able to get pregnant that way." Another thought hit me. "So, you weren't using protection with him?" She looked at me. "I'm on the pill." I leaned forward and looked her in the eye. "Besides you and sorry Bridges, how many other women has he been with?" "We know at least about one more, Christine, who was just a one-night stand." "It's not about getting pregnant, you idiot." "Oh hell, I need to get tested." "That's probably a good idea." "Yes, first thing tomorrow." "Please, take me home. Make me yours again. Please, I'll never do anything like this again. When you're clean. But before that, I want you to do something." "Anything, darling. Anything. On the way home, we're going to tell your parents what you did." Her face went pale. No, I can't do that to them." "You can't do that to them." "I really can't." "So, you won't do anything for me after all." "I guess that's it. We're done." I picked up the divorce papers, signed them, and handed them to her. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it." "All right, let's stop by on the way home." "Oh, and by the way, you don't have to give them all the dirty details. Just admit you had an affair with Dave and for how long. That's why you're leaving. You don't need to tell them how many times or what else you did for him." When we stepped outside, there was an ambulance and several police cars. Where did they all come from? Usually, from the weekend until the next day, you wouldn't see a single officer, but now there were 7 of them. We approached the front door of her parents' house and she was still crying. Her mom helped her inside and her dad was there too. "What happened, sweetheart? Is everything all right? Is Craig okay?" her mom asked. "Yes, Mom, Craig is fine." "Well, sort of." She composed herself and took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, I need to confess something. I've been having an affair with David for the past 3 months. It was a huge mistake. We talked about it and Craig has forgiven me." Jenny's father was now standing beside her mother. They both looked at me and noticed the suitcase in my hand. I raised my voice. "I never said I forgave you." Jenny turned and looked at me. I dropped the suitcase on the floor. Her eyes widened and her hands flew to her mouth. "Years ago, you chose me, but then you decided you needed him too. Sorry, that's not enough. I've already spoken with a lawyer. I pulled the final envelope from my pocket and handed it to her. Her father took it from me. I swear I could see tears in his eyes. Divorce papers. You've been cheating on me with him for 3 months. You lived with him like husband and wife, so this marriage is over. You gave me guilt-ridden intimacy and told me you loved him. I saw you cleaning his apartment. Do you realize he was just using you as the maid who kept his place tidy for other women? Our marriage will be officially dissolved in 90 days. The apartment is rented. You can stay there or move in here with your parents if they'll take you. I don't care either way. Just let me know if you want to stay in the apartment and give me time to collect my things. Through her tears, she said, I really do love you. She was crying. I love you so much. Obviously, that wasn't enough. You made yourself right at home with that lying bastard. He betrayed me as a friend, he betrayed you, he betrayed Mr. Bridges, and I suppose in some way he betrayed Sorry with you. He would have made a great husband, wouldn't he? If you're wondering. With that, I walked out the door. She had a choice. She could love 2 people, but her choice was to have sex with the one she loved the least. And apparently it wasn't even good sex.